for joining us today and welcome to my sewing room. Our show today has a little bit different flavor. We're doing traditional crazy patch, but we're actually doing more of an heirloom crazy patch. Let me explain what I mean. Heirloom crazy patch means using laces, machine embroidery, all those wonderful stitches on your sewing machine, and lots of laces and tatting and ribbons. This is one vest, which is a lovely example. Heirloom crazy patch can also mean using something very elegant. This little pinafore bib dress has lots of machine stitching. As a matter of fact, the whole dress is made by sewing machine. Machine stitching on the collar, machine stitching around the little ruffle on the pinafore, lots of ribbon and lace and crazy patch, and even the skirt. The total embellishment, using antique laces of course, but the total embellishment and all of the trim and even the scallop on the bottom is done with machine stitching. That's what I call heirloom crazy patch. Oh, wait until you see these. These beautiful, very pale pastels, all the different lovely pastel colors. Crazy patch Christmas stockings feature major lovely silk ribbon embroidery designs. That's the one that's primarily done in colors of pink. And from top to bottom, I think you can appreciate how absolutely beautiful this heirloom crazy patch stocking is. Well, I just about dropped it, didn't I? This one has pearls that outline the edge of the stocking. Wonderful silk ribbon embroidery, laces, motifs, regular embroidery. What a lovely addition to your family's Christmas celebration. Then we have more heirloom crazy patch on this beautiful quilt, which has laces, all kinds of different fabrics, machine silk ribbon embroidery. In other words, silk ribbon wrapped around the bobbin and stitched out of the machine rather than done by hand. Here's some free motion embroidery on your sewing machine, laces, all kinds of writing for different occasions. Truly an heirloom crazy patch quilt with just a little bit of everything but the kitchen sink on it. Now, the techniques for crazy patch, heirloom crazy patch, are somewhat the same as traditional crazy patch and somewhat different from traditional crazy patch. I think we add a lot more of the lovely machine embroidery, those decorative stitches that maybe some of you have been wondering, now where will I use all of these beautiful stitches on my sewing machine? Come with me to the technique boards to discover the answer to that question. Where am I going to use all of those beautiful embroidery stitches on my sewing machine? Non-traditional crazy patch is a great way to get some extra mileage out of those beautiful stitches on your sewing machine. Here's how. This particular example is using those beautiful stitches on your sewing machine stitched down over ribbon. The next example is just simply leaves and flowers, a double row, all machine embroidery stitching. The next example shows stitching down a piece of lace, which is right here in the center, with a beautiful decorative stitch in blue on one side and a beautiful decorative stitch on the other side. Here is just a wide row of several different types of stitches done in blue and gold. Here is a very unusual crazy patch. Scallops on the top, scallops on the bottom, and decorative stitch holding down ribbon. And this last one is such a sweet crazy patch idea. A piece of lace held down on either side by machine embroidery hearts. Now here is the way the non-traditional crazy patch works. Okay, cut your pieces made from your machine embroidered crazy patch. Cut them actually about the right size that you want them. Stitch them together. Okay, here's another piece already cut. I will pull it in here where it fits and then zigzag all of them together. Now here comes a fun technique. Over all of these lines where the pieces were stitched together, put a piece of ribbon down, and this case it's a double feather stitch, stitching that down right to your muslin. Now remember, you've got to have a backing for this non-traditional crazy patch. So everywhere you had a zigzag, put a piece of ribbon down and do any decorative stitch you want to. Put the ribbon this way and this way and this way and this way, and if you will look, you will see this is a non-traditional, maybe sort of crazy patch. Now, for an heirloom crazy patch the traditional way, let's go over to the sewing machine for your home decorating idea of the day. I welcome as my guest today Kathy McMakin, construction editor for So Beautiful magazine. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you so much, Martha. Today we are going to show you how to do crazy patch, and we are going to start the patching in two different places. We're going to start in the middle of a piece, and we're also going to start on the edge of a piece. So you decide which method you like the best, and you go for it. We're going to start with just sewing on some little scraps, but if you had a pattern that you were going to crazy patch, like a stocking or a yoke of a dress, you would draw your yoke off onto a piece of base fabric. Your base fabric can be whatever you choose. It can be a piece of muslin or a piece of polycotton batiste, anything you'd like. This is just polycotton batiste that we're using today, and if you'll notice, we've started with a 5-sided figure that we've just pinned right in the center. Then you take a piece of whatever you choose, and you choose a side, and we're just going to stitch that to the side of our first piece, and we're only going to stitch from where our first piece underneath starts and stops. Now we already have a piece stitched for you on our next sample, and you can see the piece is stitched. We can cut away any excess of both pieces, especially your underneath piece, and then you flip it, and you can finger press it or press it with the iron, either one. Then we have a third piece that will come in, and we've already dotted the lines on here to show you where this next piece is going to go. We'll sew this next piece in, and let's go ahead and sew this piece. We'll just slide this out of the way. And when you start stitching, you want to stitch just starting with your underneath piece, and you're just going to stitch right along the edge to the end of the second piece. Remember, we're just stitching that third piece on, and we'll just clip this, and we'll just flip it back, and we would be finger pressing, and then we're ready to add our fourth piece. Now our fourth piece on this particular piece is a piece of ribbon. Ribbon, as you know, already has finished sides on it, so we can just lay it down, just slap it down right on top of our other pieces, and we can just stitch just as it is done on this piece. We'll remove this piece, and do you see how the stitching is just right along the edge of the ribbon? Then we can flip this ribbon up, and we'll trim away all the excess pieces underneath. And then we'll be ready to add our next piece. And if you've noticed, we've worked in a clockwise direction on this, and we'll just continue working in a clockwise direction until our whole piece is full. The next thing we're going to show you is the same type of thing, but we'd really like to start at one edge of the fabric, and that's done much like the pillow that we're going to show you in just a minute. We also start with a multi-sided piece of fabric for our first piece. Then we'll add our second piece on. Then, if you'll see, we have our third piece already pinned on. Our second piece was sewn and flipped back, finger pressed. We've added the third piece. We would stitch it on, flip it back, finger press it, and we'll just ribbon is next. Ribbon is always fun to work with because you can just straight stitch right on top. Then we've added a piece of lace next. And do you see how we've just built out, and we'll go all the way around, building up more in a fan shape. And you can see this is a piece that's ready to be stitched on. We'll stitch this, flip it back, finger press it, and don't forget to trim away everything underneath. Your stitch length on Crazy Patch needs to be a little bit longer than your regular stitch length. Therefore, when you trim away, you can actually pull those underneath pieces, the stitching away, so you can cut them away underneath. Now our pillow that we are going to demonstrate today as well is a very nice memorabilia pillow for a little baby. And this is a pillow for Joanna. And you can see all the different crazy patch pieces on here. It's been embellished with silk ribbon embroidery and all the different things. So let's show you how to do a crazy patch with an opening in the middle. Here is our piece for our crazy patch, and if you'll notice, we started in the corner, we added our pieces, and you can go ahead and crazy patch this entire piece, just keeping in mind not to put too much special things right in the middle because that's going to be cut away. Then we've taken a piece of water-soluble stabilizer, which is a really good thing to use, and we've stitched around the water-soluble stabilizer. We've put little clips in the edges, and we'll just flip that water-soluble stabilizer to the underneath side, and that helps us to turn those corners and make a nice, neat corner. And that will open up our center section. We'll turn it around so the baby's the right way. And we would just add the baby in the hole, and we would do all of our decorative stitching on our crazy patch. Then construct your pillow, and you are finished with this beautiful project.
Kathy, thank you so much for sharing both of those ways of completing Crazy Patch.
You're welcome, Martha.
I have one more lovely little trick concerning heirloom Crazy Patch to share with you. This is, I call it heirloom Crazy Patch because it really is done of heirloom fabrics. Once again, using the drop-waisted little girl's dress we're featuring on this series. These Crazy Patch, by the way, this is a little detachable collar. This has Crazy Patch lovely heirloom embroideries. It has the beading with the ribbon run through it, lots of little buttons, silk ribbon embroidery. Here is how this little collar has been made. First of all, trace off the collar onto your background fabric, in this case white Swiss batiste. Then these little pieces are even numbered to show how we started over in the corner. Remember, like Kathy showed you. Piece number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, then piece number 6, number 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, here is how the Crazy Patch looks after those pieces have been put in that order. Then I zigzag, by the way, decorative stitch then over all those pieces, then zigzag around the collar shape that you're going to make. Over here shows then after lining the collar and zigzagging around the pieces, then the beading is attached to the bottom, some ribbon run through the beading, and then a little bit of lace and gathered lace to make this lovely heirloom collar. We have a doll who would like to model her heirloom Crazy Patch dress for you. Wearing a beautiful tie silk blue dress is my little blue-eyed blonde doll. Now this heirloom Crazy Patch, I absolutely love it. This is totally done on the machine with machine decorative stitches. The perfect place to use those wonderful stitches that maybe you haven't figured out exactly where to use them. We have the little patches made with, oh, this one has pink and lavender, and then here's a little piece of Swiss hand loom right here. These two little pieces of tiny, tiny baby doll edging have been stitched together with a little blue decorative stitch. Over here is another little piece of decorative stitching, a little piece of Swiss embroidery, and on and on. Now then, we've used the technique here to put the little piece of ribbon, in this case it's silk ribbon, everywhere we've joined the little pieces, we have stitched a little piece of silk ribbon down at the join, which is one of the techniques that we shared earlier today. Let me refresh your memory on that technique, please. Here I have my pieces of created Swiss hand looms created on a sewing machine, not created in Switzerland. And you see I cut the pieces the exact size, butt them up together. Now this little piece right here I'm going to illustrate. You see it folds over that piece, which I don't want it to fold over that piece, so I'm going to cut along that line with my little arthritis scissors here. So easy to use if you have problems with your hands. Very, very gentle on the hands and very easy to use. So I'm going to cut along that little piece, and then you see that little piece, close up my little scissors here, that little piece matches, and then I can put some more pieces in here, again butting them up and matching them, After I get the whole bodice, here is the bodice of this little dress, after I get the whole bodice embellished with these little pieces with the lace and the motif and the little hearts and roses and all of these things. After I create the whole bodice, I will then put down the silk ribbon on every one of these seams. Okay, silk ribbon here, silk ribbon here, silk ribbon here, and I will do a decorative stitch on top of the silk ribbon, and that is absolutely all there is to creating this very unusual heirloom crazy patch. And now we have another really nice silk ribbon embroidery stitch by hand for you. I am so pleased to welcome as my guest today, Kathy Brower. Kathy is embroidery editor for So Beautiful magazine and has another exciting silk ribbon embroidery stitch for you today. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you, Martha. Well, today I can't think of a better show to show you this stitch than the Crazy Patch show, because this stitch is called the Cretan stitch, and it's a great stitch to cover those seams and embellish your Crazy Patch projects. It's a beautiful stitch. First, I'd like to show you this beautiful Christmas stocking and I want you to notice how each seam on this Christmas stocking is covered with lots of zigzaggy stitches and flowers and flosses, and that's basically the idea with Crazy Patch, Martha. You want to cover those seams and just put all kinds of beautiful colors on them. What I've done here is I've used a 2 millimeter ribbon right here to show you how this stitch can be varied just by making the lines a little wider or taking a larger bite when you do the stitch or a smaller bite. Here I've just extended the width between the rows a little more and taken a larger bite and used a smaller ribbon width. So that you can see better, I'm going to be using a large 7 millimeter ribbon, and I'm going to show you this. Basically, the way you work with the Cretan stitch is just like stacking bricks, and I've drawn the dots here. You wouldn't necessarily need to draw the dots, you just need to kind of eyeball it and line it up. I'm going to start over here in the middle. You just got to start somewhere. Then what I'm going to do is I'm coming down, let me pull this out of the way so you can see it. I'm coming down into this hole, and I'm coming just taking a little bite up like that. I want this to come over my ribbon, so you can wrap it or just pull your ribbon around. And what I like about this stitch is it's very forgiving. You don't have to worry about it being exactly straight. It can twist up on you. It's, you can pull it, I would pull it a little tauner than you would on your flowers, because you want your ribbons to be loose and fluffy on your flowers. This one, you want to pull a little tighter. And as you see, I'm working back and forth on this line. And I'm taking a bite, and then I'm wrapping my ribbon around that, like so. And I'm pulling that back up through it, and it catches it. And I'm moving on up to the next one up here, taking a bite, coming over my thread, well, my ribbon, I'm calling it a thread again. But, it's a little more complicated than our other stitches I've been showing you, and I can't seem to call everything easy, but really, if you try it and you get the hang of it, you can just keep going, and it is pretty easy. It's just a matter of taking the time to watch it, line it up, pull it through, and you can just keep going. You'll have it done in no time. And you would really line your seam up right through the middle of this. You can make it large or small.
The seam of the Crazy Patch then would go right in the middle of those dots.
And it's really nice to add a bead, to the top of each one of these little crests to make it look like a flower. Yeah. So it's...
Oh, Kathy, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now, the Cretan stitch, is that
it's called the
all
Cretan
right?
stitch.
The Cretan stitch, great for Crazy Patch. Speaking of Crazy Patch, we have another type of Crazy Patch to share with you now. A sort of maybe kind of Crazy Patch or a mock Crazy Patch on our quilt square for today. This is the easiest quilt square to make. It's a mock Crazy Patch. Look, if you will, with me. It simply has pieces of Swiss trims. This is a little Swiss motif with a monogram on it. More pieces of trim, a little bit of fringe, 4 little baby ducks stitched on this piece of Swiss trim, another motif, a little motif with a ribbon, a button in the middle tied with silk ribbon. We've used a lot of silk ribbon bows on this one. Here is how you do this, by the easiest, I might add. All right, here is my quilt square, the base fabric. Then I simply come in here, place a motif, place another motif, put it down any way I want to. This is so creative because you are the one that decides exactly what you want to do. And then just do it and sew it. And then I will simply zigzag these down, zig here, zig there, all over here, sew buttons on if I want to. Put silk ribbon embroidery, a little touch of silk ribbon embroidery if I want to, a little machine embellishment if I want to. I simply lay it down and zigzag it, and this is the easiest possible quilt square and so much fun to make. Now, the craft idea for today, I think you're really going to like because we have created a really elegant sewing basket for you. This is a gift idea that I think almost every lady on your list would really like to have. It's a decorated sewing box. This sewing box, in its original form, was about $12 at a local discount store, and I took scraps of satins and laces and buttons and little Swiss motifs and keys and silk ribbon, and this is another little heart button and the little porcelain buttons, and then decorated it traditional crazy patch. Just a little bit of everything stitched on the crazy patch, as you can see on this lid, a little bit of gold braid, other types of braids, embroideries, then one little piece of ribbon, and then finished it off with a little bit of pearl trim, you know, the bridal pearl kind of trim just glued on. Okay, here is the box, and here's how we started. This is the box, which I believe was about $12. It is a sewing box, but you know something? This would be just as nice for a jewelry box also, so I think that the teenagers on your list would enjoy it too. It has a little tray. So we took this plain little sewing box and made a piece of crazy patch, large enough to go on the top. You can see I've used velvet and taffeta and water-stained taffeta and a little piece of tie silk, and they're just whatever scraps you have. Then I can either use a knife and pry it underneath here to get the crazy patch after it's embellished onto the box, or I can actually just kind of pry the top up and then re-glue it back down. Now the embellishment consisted of all different kinds of things, but these are a couple of little charms. That's a little angel charm and a little, something else. It looks like a telephone almost charm. And then after the crazy patch was pried underneath the top, I simply take pearls and go around the edge and glue the pearls on the edge. And what a nice gift for very little time and very little money. I love to collect antique clothes. Come with me and let's take a trip to my attic, look in my grandmother's trunk, and I think I will find something really exciting to share with you. I have an incredible masterpiece for you today for this Crazy Patch show. It really isn't Crazy Patch, but it reminded me. It's so intricate and so beautiful. This blouse has all hand embroidery. Everything on this blouse is done by hand. The wonderful drawn work, the treatment over the shoulders. Let me try to show you the shoulder. There is no shoulder seam. It's simply the embroidery goes all over the shoulder. And look in the back. The embroidery does even matches on either side of the buttons. Is that an incredible piece of work or what? Now, I'm going to read something real interesting. There's a little tag. I have almost no tags in my antique clothes, but this one says 1906. And then it says it was purchased by Miss Bolger in 1939. And it belonged to the Traphagen School. I wish I knew where the Traphagen School was. Maybe if some of you do, you can let me know. This beautiful, beautiful blouse that has all kinds of intricate work. The last piece I have to share with you today is a true antique crazy quilt. The embroidery is not the finest in the world, but it is still beautiful. On a recent buying trip through New England recently, I was pricing Crazy Patch quilts, old Crazy Patch quilts. The least expensive one that I could find that wasn't very pretty and sort of torn up was about $350 for one that was old. And most expensive ones that were really in good shape were well over $1,000. So you see, you'll have a real treasure when you make Crazy Patch. Thank you for joining me today, and I certainly hope you can come back next week.